Okay, we are going to do a live analysis because I'm getting a little bit of a late start. It's almost 10 o'clock already. So we can see that at the opening bell this morning, which was right there, it went down a little bit, but then had a great big green candle right off the bat. And it's been kind of fluctuating in that space ever since. All right, so let's go to the 4-hour chart here. In fact, let's go ahead and just bring it up on the big screen. All right, so we will bring it up here. Okay, and we can see that, let's get rid of the Fibonacci line here so we don't have so much going on. All right, we can see that the MACD is kind of heading down, but that being said, it is kind of losing that downward momentum. We can see that the red lines are turning dark and getting smaller. That means that we are nearing the bottom of this turn. And RSI doesn't really give us a whole lot of helpful information right there. But then we can see up here that the SMA, that it is staying above, the gold SMA right here, and is the point that it bounced off of. So that's really significant. We're going to go ahead and raise up that line right there because that's pretty key. And this blue line is the blue SMA, and that's pretty much in the same spot. That doesn't change very much. All right, we can also see that the point that it bounced off of up here, the ceiling that it had, is this red line that we drew in, which goes all the way back to here. So that's pretty significant. That is the latest high that it's reached. So I would say that it is still attempting an upward movement, and we are near the bottom of that movement. So actually, according to the 4-hour chart, this is not a bad time to be getting into a more long-term, long-held, long position. All right, so let's see if that pans out with the rest of the charts. Here's the 1-hour chart, and you can see that that gold SMA on the 4-hour also matches up with the blue SMA on the 20, so that's not very uncommon. However, the MACD here we see on the 1-hour chart has just made a death cross and is actually losing that upward momentum. So that's kind of interesting. If we had caught it at, let's see, that last night, so that green candle right there, let's see if we can figure out what time that was. I'm not sure that gives it to us. I guess that would be the last bit of last night. So this morning, we're looking at right through here. So that big green upward candle was actually, let's see. Oh, I'm so bad at military time. 6 o'clock last night. It made a big movement upwards. All right, and it's been kind of tapering off since then. So it is possible that it will drop down and bounce off of that blue line again, which is maybe what this MACD is pointing towards. If you just look at this little piece of the pie here, it does look like it's a curve and downward curve, like it's going to be dropping. And you can also see on the RSI, each peak is losing momentum, but it's also losing momentum with the candles either. So that's not really new information. The only thing that's kind of significant is these two right here. This is a lower point than this, and you can see that this peak over here is lower than that one. So there's a discrepancy there. It's losing momentum here, but it's gaining momentum on the RSI. And so you can see that, you can see how in the last couple days that's actually panned out. You can see it actually dropping and losing momentum overall. And so I do believe that that is what we are in the midst of right now. All right. So the shorter term movement might be more dropping, but not going below that gold SMA. So that's kind of what we gleaned so far from that information. Let's jump to the 15-minute chart. I usually skip the 30, it's just kind of redundant. All right, so if we are seeing a possible drop to that gold line, then what are we seeing on this chart? And we can see that it kind of followed through the SMAs, which have all clustered together, didn't really break above it very far, dropped down, and actually hit a little bit of a higher point here, which is kind of interesting. And then has attempted a rise, and right now, at this very moment, might actually be hitting a resistance level and dropping. The MACD does not tell us that that is true. It tells us that we have some more upward momentum to go. Sometimes we see the MACD gain upward momentum, but the candles stay flat. So let's watch for the next few minutes here and see if that is what is going to pan out. And we'll put in an alert here so that if it goes above that, we will be aware. It's not very far above where we are right now, actually. It's right in this area right through here. All right, so we're expecting maybe a little bit of upward movement, but then a drop. And being a scalper, that's more the movement that we're looking for. And that's actually what we want to trade on. So I would say, like, if you were holding these for days on end, you would want to look at the longer term chart. But since we are looking to hold these only for a few minutes, we want to look at more of the shorter term charts. So this is why we look at the 15 and the 5 and the 1 minute charts, because those are the ones that are showing more the intermediate movements and in amongst the big ones. So I know it's kind of, I get bogged down sometimes with thinking through and remembering all the longer term charts, and it messes with my mind. It's almost too much information. But I think it's really important still to look at those longer term charts because they do have an effect on the intermediate and the shorter term stuff. They really do. It means that things will react a little bit stronger. Like this big green candle right here was probably a reaction either to a piece of news, which is also a possibility, or to that longer term push towards the rise that we saw happening on the 4-hour chart. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video and we'll take some screenshots later to show what happened next. Okay, I know this is just about a minute later, but look at the 1 minute chart here. Look at the MACD. I think we are just about ready to get into a short here. So let's go ahead and get our order set up. And go ahead and, oops, I just need to do one. Place one order right there. And as the indicators are stronger and stronger, the faster the candle is going to move. And so sometimes once you make a decision, I don't know why it does that. Canceled my bracketed orders. All right, so I'm in a short and I'm going to place these guys here, not there. We'll go ahead and place a fairly tight stop here because, well, that's pretty tight actually. How about we put it up above that point there? Let's see, we have a peak right there that it hit, just broke through it a little bit. And then the next point up here, like that, would be that point. So let's see what kind of loss amount that would be. So we're talking about 11 points. 11 points times our $5 multiplier here would be a $55 loss. All right. So it looks like it is truly dropping. That's awesome. And we have our limit order kind of at the SMAs are just below it, because I think that may be where it's going. All right. And remember, more the longer term movements that we're looking at here are going to be more upward trending. And you can see that on the 30-minute chart here. And let's go look at that 1 hour chart as well. All right, on the 1 hour chart, it looks like it's starting to turn down. So that's interesting. So it's possible that it might even actually get all the way down to that yellow line again. But for now, we're going to shoot for something a little bit smaller. And that was a green candle there, which is unfortunate. Didn't get down as far as I had hoped there. But we are going to keep watching it and see what we can see. Okay, you can see that it has gone up quite a bit, almost to where I put that alert. And now there's a nice drop. So let's see if it breaks through this resistance level right through here, which is pretty much break even there for me. Pretty strong drop. MACD looks really good on the short term, and on the 5-minute, it looks like it's losing momentum. We're just about there. RSI is starting to tip over, that's good. So the 15-minute chart, the MACD is not good, the RSI is. So when we start getting into more longer term stuff here, that tells us that this downward movement is probably not going to be just huge. I think the likelihood of it getting down to this point right here is pretty good. 43, right through there. Maybe raise this up a little bit. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, a nice big red candle, but it's not the first time we've made an attempt at a drop for a while now. And it's a little bit tenuous. Right off of that point, which is not surprising. I still think it probably could get down here. If you look at the longer term chart, you can actually see a red candle develop there and look like it's hit a resistance level and drop, which is not the first time. That would be par for the course here. It's that MACD right there that gives me concern, and also the longer term charts, because they do weigh in on what we see here. And that red candle basically got rejected. So I'm tempted to lower my stop actually and take a little bit more risk off the table. If I did bring it down, it would be right in this level right here. So that would be about $35 right there, versus the, what was it? 55. I put the stop up here, kind of where that flat area was right there. I feel like that's a pretty decent resistance area. It did blow through it at one point. I wouldn't want to hang on to it all the way up to there. Yeah, if I am wrong about the direction that it's taking, now let's see. If I put it just above this blue SMA, I just think that's a good spot. I really do. I don't think I want to mess with that. So we'll just keep watching. Just taking a very long time to make that drop, because there's a lot of resistance against dropping right now. Okay, just put a wick up there real quick and triggered that alert. and looks like it's still marching on up. Hasn't really broken that resistance level yet that I see on the 15-minute chart, but it's trying. Okay, it's trying another drop. Looking good on the 5-minute chart this time. And looking really good on the 1-minute chart, of course. The line is right at the point where I got in. Very interesting. So hopefully it will drop below that point. Okay, it has dropped through the yellow line now. It's been kind of attempting it a couple times, but now it's actually through it. The yellow line has crept upwards as well. And on the 5-minute chart, at least, we can definitely see it's continuing to lose momentum. On the 1-minute chart, we've got something interesting going on with the RSI. You can see that is slowly, each peak is losing momentum, even though the candles have been pretty much straight across. So that's why I have continued to hang on to this trade. And there have been a few times when I've kind of doubted that it was going to go the way I wanted it to go, thought it was going to go, I should say. The other thing that I'm looking at here, we're starting to lose momentum on the 15-minute chart as well, which is really encouraging. You can see the MACD is starting to tip over. And you can actually see 2 red candles now. Remember back here we had a red candle and it disappeared, it went up a little further, and now we see 2. So that's all good news that it will drop. So we're going to continue to hang on to this. And hopefully we'll get filled here real soon. Okay, we're getting really close. I'm going to go ahead and drop down the stop to lock in the profits just in case it decides to jump up before it fills. Beautiful. And there it goes. So, finally, that was a long time to wait for that trade. So now, before we get into anything else, we want to kind of go through and see what the next big movement is going to be. I would say that because it was fighting that downward movement so much, perhaps getting into a long is not a bad idea. We're just not there yet by any stretch of the imagination on any chart. So we're going to readdress that when we see some evidence that it might be going up. So, good. Okay, we made a huge drop. I could have probably followed it down a lot further, but did not. And now we have made a definite bounce. So I'm now going to get into a long. And we can see on the short minute chart, or 1-minute chart here, the short term, I think it's a pretty good place. So let's go ahead and put in our brackets here. And we're going to set them here and then move them. And I honestly think it probably could get right up to that point again. So now this end of things, where is it going to go? Where is the limit for our loss? If I put it down here below this, that is a pretty big loss. So we're talking about, let me do some math here. So that's like 28 points, $140. Yeah, we really don't want to do that. And remember, we were talking about, if we go to the longer term charts here, we were talking about that gold line as being a pretty solid point that it won't drop below. So if we raise it up to just below that, something like that, what kind of a loss are we talking about then? we are talking about there is 56.12, so 19 points, $95. That's a pretty big loss too. So this is one of those difficult situations. Maybe should have waited to get in, but I really thought it was heading up pretty quickly. So putting that much risk on the table, I have to be pretty sure about my trade. And the other possibility is to go ahead and get out. I mean, that's a 20-point drop that it might possibly make right here. On the 1 minute chart does look like it is heading up. The RSI is super low. Difficult decisions. I don't think it'll stay down there long if it does. All right, let's wait it out and see what happens. All right, a few minutes later here, and we can see that it has made an attempt to break out, and looks like it just did. So now we are heading upwards, and I have every reason to think that it's going to get right up to that point where it dropped from. Probably even up a little bit higher. We shall see. Interesting little thing developed there. It did head up and hit the orange line and then dropped. It does seem to have stabilized. Possibly is turning around. We can see on the 5 minute chart looking pretty good. 15-minute chart hasn't quite turned up yet. Still think it'll get up there, but it's going to take a while today, I think. Okay, it has attempted to break through that orange line again. And it is tempting to go ahead and just get out right there, but I think I'll hang on. Alrighty, I think that's close enough. I'll go ahead and lower that down. And there we go. $122 for today. Awesome. Thanks for joining me.